Hey everyone, thanks for joining us for the webinar today. One of our engineers here, Trent Patterson, is going to be presenting on etching in SigmaNEST. It looks like we've still got some people joining, so we're going to give it just a couple of minutes here, and then we'll get started into the webinar. Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started here. My name is Christina. I'm the operations manager here at Sigmatek, and today Trent Patterson, one of our application engineers, is going to be talking about etching in SigmaNEST and the different methods you can use to add etching to your parts and your remnants. So before we get started here, just a couple of things. If you look at your GoToWebinar box there, you should see a section for questions. If you have any questions during the webinar, just go ahead and put those in there. We'll also ask for questions at the end here, and then we'll address those right at the end of the webinar here. Also, you'll see a survey once we get to the end of the webinar here. If you could fill that out, it really gives us some good information on what you guys would like to see in future webinars that we put on, and any feedback you have on the current one. Okay, so I'll go ahead and hand it over to Trent, and we'll get started here.
Thanks, Christina. Hey everybody, like Christina was saying, my name is Trent Patterson. I'm an application engineer here at Sigmatek, and today we're going to be looking at etching inside of SigmaNEST. So what exactly is etching? Basically etching, like it said, is just going to be the ability to mark information on a part or a sheet for operators and others to see that information. So as you can see in the picture here, it's not going to actually cut through the part. It is just going to etch through a few layers on that material, just so it's actually able to be seen on the part itself. So some of the etching features we will cover in SigmaNEST today is going to be auto part marking, remnant marking, import mapping, multiprocess, and edit geometry. So kind of going through here, what auto part marking is, this is just going to give you the ability to put auto text on the part itself. So let's say if you want to put your part name, your thickness, and your material and have it etch onto the part itself automatically whenever you bring in parts, you can be able to use this feature. What we can do as well is we can go ahead and take a look inside of SigmaNEST here. So what we're going to do here is we're just going to get a standard shape. We're going to get a standard square. We're going to go ahead and bring that into SigmaNEST. Within here, whenever we get it to pop up, oh well, if my SigmaNEST will come up. Okay. So if we get it here inside of SigmaNEST, we can go into our grain tab. Right over here inside of the grain tab, we have our add auto text. If we go ahead and click on that, we have a few options in here to, let's say, like I said, part name, work order, drawing number, revision, material, thickness, customer. You also have part data, so anything in this part data fields down here, you can be able to add that text in. So let's say for right now, we just want to do part name. You can also do a random text. So we'll just say hello world. So as you can see, you can add in either text that you want to create or generalized information that we already have pre-programmed in here. You can also move the up and down arrows, so that will put the text either above or below what you want it to, so you can get that in the correct order. And then if, let's say, you don't want something on here, you can also click this X to delete that. We also have text size, so this is going to be the actual size of the text that you see. We have our different text properties, so we can do marking or no cut. For this example, we're just going to do marking since we're talking about etching. You can also change the different text positions as well. So if you want to do right, center, bottom, and then just variations of those as well. You also have edge offset. That is going to offset the text from the edge of the part itself. So if you want it very close to the edge, or if you want it in a particular distance from the edge of that part, you can be able to change that as well. So if we go ahead and say OK, you can see here that our part is now going to have that dark purple, which is going to signify that that will be etched. So now go ahead and going back into the slides itself. We also have the ability to have remnant marking. So if you're using a stock sheet and you want to be able to mark on that sheet, so if you want to put your sheet name, if you want to put your material, any information, so that way your operators or anyone that will be using that remnant needs to know, you have the ability to mark that on there as well. So we'll go ahead and take a look at this inside of SigmaNEST as well. So for this, we'll just make a new task. We'll bring our parts over. We will make sure that we have the correct material and thickness. So we'll just go into our task parameters. So we're using our correct machine with our correct material. I will go ahead and add a new stock sheet. From here, we just want to make sure that we add a stock sheet just so we can create a remnant from that sheet itself. So as you see, we have our stock sheet in here. So we'll go ahead and click OK. From here, we're just going to go ahead and auto nest our parts. We're going to go into our auto NC. We're just going to auto NC these. In our auto NC, whenever this does pop up, we can be able to select our create remnant, as well as our remnant marking. So inside of here, I already have set up a sheet name and material. Just like in the part data fields, it's kind of the same thing with the remnant. You have the ability to add in thickness, bin number, or just kind of different information for what you're looking to have on the sheet. Like I said here, you also have the ability to have different types of marking processes. You can change your text size if you want to change the angle of the text itself, the spacing in between the lines of the parts or of the text, any positioning that you want to have as well, and then, like I said, that edge clearance, so how far away you want it from the edge of the sheet. So if we just go ahead and say OK on this, so here it will go ahead and auto NC. We also, on the right side of our sheets, we have our sheet name as well as our material. So go ahead and going back into the PowerPoint now. We're going to go ahead and take a look at importing layers as etching. So basically what this is saying is whenever you import in parts, either a DXF or DWG, if you have interactive mapping on, you have the ability to import these specific layers as a etching part. So we'll go ahead and go back into SigmaNEST and we can take a look at this. So if we go into our DXF and we open up our interactive mapping, and we'll go ahead and import this. So whenever this loads, we can go ahead and look at how this is coming in. So right now we have the ability to either go off of colors. We also have the ability to look at layers and levels. For this example, we're just going to look at layers and levels. Kind of shows it off a little bit more cleanly. So for this, we'll just take our no curve, make it a no curve cut, curve cut, we'll leave it as curve cut, and marking, we would change this to mark. So as you can see, our no curve cut will be that blue, our marking will be this yellow, and our curve cut is going to be signified by the red. So if we go ahead and import this into SigmaNEST, so as you can see here, we have our dark purple is going to be indicated by the etching process. So our marking turns dark purple. We also have this interactive mapping just because we had the part name get brought over through the auto text. So for this example, I'll just go ahead and turn that off, so we'll only have that marking come in. So as you can see there, all that gets brought in correctly. So going back to these slides as well, we also have the ability to set geometry to etch. So what this is going to do is with any piece of geometry, if you want a specific entity to etch, you have that ability as well. We can go ahead and look at SigmaNEST on this. So if I go into standard shapes and I just import a square within a square, so it's just a square with an internal square cutout. Whenever this loads up, you can see how you have your center that is going to be cut out. But for this example, we're just going to go into geometry. Whenever this loads up, what we're going to do here is click on our marking. We're going to highlight the square that we want to change to marking. So you can see now this is yellow and this is going to be purple. So that purple is going to signify that we're going to etch. We're going to close out of this. We're going to rebuild our part. And now you can see here, this green is just going to be our outside contour, where this purple is now going to be our etching contour. Now next up, we have etching with multi-process. So what this is saying is some machines have multiple marking processes on one machine. So for some of our examples, we have scribe and Sharpie, which is usually going to be found in routers. We have lasers and inkjet. We have point mark and plasma mark, which is what we'll take a look at today. Basically, this is just giving the machine the ability to have multiple ways to be able to etch one part. Just depending on, let's say if you're using the scribe or the Sharpie, if you don't want to actually etch into the part, you can write onto the part with a Sharpie. So going into SigmaNEST, how we can choose between those. So if we go into the part itself, we have the ability to go up here to the drop down under quality. If we click change process, we can highlight this text here that we want to etch. Instead of the default process, we have the ability to do plasma marking. So you can see how it signifies by one color. I can change the process again, and we can change this to point mark. And you can see how that's going to change color as well. So this is to differentiate between the two processes that you're going to use and how you want to actually etch or mark your part with inside of SigmaNEST. So other than that, just want to say thank you for taking the time to listening to our webinar on etching inside of SigmaNEST. If you have any questions, please feel free to go ahead and ask them in the chat box itself. You also have the ability to call into our support line. You can be reached via our support line or our email inbox. We also have our Connect site. That way you can be able to look up on our knowledge base and also sign up for future webinars.
All right, everyone. Thanks for joining us. We'll give it just a minute here to see if any more questions come in. We did have a question come in about remnant marking a QR code or a barcode. So that really depends on your machine. If your machine is capable, if it has like an M code or a CAN cycle where it would output a barcode based on a string of text in the NC file, we can absolutely do that. So we can output that string of text with the M code or the CAN cycle in the NC file. But we don't have the ability to for you to view the barcode QR code in SigmaNEST or to output just the etching lines for doing that. So it would have to be like a CAN cycle for that. Let's see, we've got another question in. When plasma marking, is there a way to up the amperage for a deeper etch? So again, that's going to depend on your machine. So on a plasma machine, sometimes those etching codes, we're just outputting a cut condition that corresponds to a table on the machine controller. And in those cases, you would want to change the amperage on the machine controller for that given cut condition for the marking process or the plasma marking process. And in other cases, we are directly outputting like a voltage setting or something like that to control the deeper the depth of the etch in the program. So it's really going to depend on which method your particular machine in post is using. I would recommend calling into our support line, and we can take a look with you and see what is being output in the program, and if it's something that you would need to change at the controller or something we could change in your tech table or in your post. Okay, I don't see any other questions for now. As I mentioned earlier, you guys will all receive a survey as you leave the webinar. Please let us know if you have any suggestions for any future webinars. We'd love to hear those. Our next one's going to be on the 24th of June here. We're doing one on optimizing press brake production. So this is going to be on the Sigma Bend product and kind of focus on the options there. Well, it looks like we did have one more question come in. It says, I also have a need to test the existing tech tables and test it, especially as the machine gets older. We could not get the etching cutting length separated from the part profile cut length. We may need some more details on that. I'm not sure what you mean by the etching cut length versus the part profile cut length. Maybe that has to do with some cut conditions there. I would say give us a call or reach out to us at the support@sigmanest.com email address, and we can take a look at that with you and see what the details are and get you started on that testing that needs done. Okay, everybody, thanks for joining us. Have a good rest of your Wednesday, and we look forward to seeing you in a future webinar.